Okay, we're going to go over this particular setup. This was an actual inspection, one of the more difficult ones because seemingly everything went wrong. So this is a perfect field example to go over so that it prepares you for some of the worst type situations. So first of all, arriving on site, we can see that all the solar equipment is installed right on the side of the house. Looks pretty straightforward. We have a battery here. We have an inverter here. This is our net meter, and this is seemingly the panel with possibly the backfed breaker where we can get our reading. So everything's looking really straightforward. We've got our disconnect here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to know is, okay, which orientation are the panels, and are they single-facing or multi-facing? So looking at that, I did find that this was a single-facing array, so everything was facing the same direction, all at the same tilt. So jump up on the roof real quick and get a tilt, because remember, I want to prioritize good conditions during the inspection, and I don't know if you could see the blue sky up at the top, but I had good sunny weather. It was a little early in the morning, but remember, I can always come back and get another reading if I want to. So went ahead and got my panel tilt, came down. You can set up the tripod, put it at the proper tilt, get it away from anything that could shade it. And then I want to find out, okay, where am I going to get my reading, and is this battery going to get in the way of my reading? So I want to start to decide if is this a DC coupled system or is this an AC coupled system? And one of the telltales is that if you have a battery breaker. So when I say battery breaker, I don't mean a disconnect for the battery. I mean, in the panel, is the battery being treated as an appliance? So like if you were to route an oven or a range, you're going to have two wires coming in on a breaker. It's going to be labeled range. Same thing for an AC coupled system, you would see battery. So it's almost being treated as an appliance, totally separate. This battery did have a disconnect behind here on the actual battery, and that's fairly normal, but we're looking for an actual battery breaker. So I did not find one, so I started to assume, okay, this is likely a DC coupled system. We may have some issues with battery interference here, so let's just be aware of that. This was a very odd scenario, and it was a lease system, and it had been modified in the past. So the original install had this as the backfed breaker, but then they discontinued use of this panel, and then they installed it on the other side. So they had this, and it looked like, this is the main. Like, okay, this is the backfed breaker. I'm going to get my reading from there. It was not. Okay, there was actually a panel on the other side of the wall. So moral of this story is to just be thorough and take a very good look. Don't make assumptions right off the bat. This was the actual backfed breaker here. And notice it's not really a disconnect. The quick disconnect is here on this knife switch. Okay. So we had a 140 amp breaker. This is where we were going to clamp to. And first thing I'm noticing early in the morning is that I've got good sun. I've got 1,000 on the radiance. That's very good. I'm getting a low reading with 1,000 on the irradiance. So either the system's not working properly or the battery is charging. And of course, I've already determined that I didn't find a battery breaker. So I'm like, okay, it's probably DC, battery's probably charging. And that is true. Okay, just to give you a little bit of insight here, with this particular system at this irradiance, I expect around 10 amps for it, and we were at just under 2, so definitely a low reading. And then when I turned on the oven, because some systems will need a draw in order to bring electricity into the house, depending on the scenario and the system and the setup, especially even with the utility company, the fact that it's net metered. So I turned on an appliance, and now I'm getting a very high reading. Remember, I was expecting around 10. Now I'm getting 16. And that's the beauty of putting this information in your calculator and actually calculating on site, is that if there's something off, you can catch it while you're on site and correct it. So now I'm getting a high reading. So this is all lining up for a DC powered system. The appliance is on, I got a high reading. Why is it a high reading? It's because not only is it pulling from the array, but the battery is assisting to bring in what we need to power that appliance, a large oven. So the battery is assisting here, and that's what's giving us the high reading. So in most situations, I'd say, okay, the battery's interfering. Let's just go to the display on the inverter, and we'll bypass the clamp reading. The calculator is fully able to switch over, and you can take what's on the display or what's in the app and put it in. But the display was not working. So you can see everything's lining up here to be like, all right, this is going to be a difficult inspection. Display's not working, so I can't get my reading from there. So I checked with the homeowner. He luckily was home, and I asked him, hey, do you have a monitoring app for the solar system? Can I take a quick look at it? I just need to get what's coming off of the panels. And he said, well, it's not working, and it hasn't worked for a long time, and I've been bugging the company that I lease from, and they haven't fixed it. So now I've got a battery interfering, I've got a display out, and I don't have an app. So how am I going to get my reading? Well, there is another option, and we talked about this in previous modules, and we do have this disconnect for the battery. So I talked to the homeowner. He was a very nice gentleman, and I said, hey, would you mind if I just disconnected the battery because it's interfering with my reading? As soon as I'm done, I'll power it back on. It shouldn't cause any problems. The only thing that usually happens is that you get a notification on your app, and your app's not even working. So you're likely to not see anything, but I just want to make sure it's okay before I do it. And I would recommend getting permission before doing that, even if no one's home. You should always get permission, because if they get a notification, they're gonna wonder why and maybe be upset about it. So he said no problem. So I turned off the battery disconnect. That completely disabled the battery from the system. And then I came back to get my reading, and lo and behold, it's a 10.2. Again, sometimes you're going to have to turn on appliance, but I'm only pulling from the array now. The battery's not interfering at all. So that's great. So I was able to get my reading, which was a 10.2 amp. Of course, you want to get your irradiance reading at the very same time. So if this takes some time, you need to redo that irradiance meter. They need to be taken almost simultaneously. And this ended up being around, I think it was about a 97, 98% score on the solar. So it was working good, although there were some repairs, obviously, that needed to be made. And then likely a narrative on some of the nuances with the system, and the fact that, that there was this panel that was hiding in the garage behind everything. Just that's more of a verbal with maybe the buyer, if you're doing a buyer's inspection, letting them know where everything's at. But this is a unique scenario. Was quite difficult to work through, so hopefully seeing one of the worst helps you out in the field. And remember, if you're running into a situation you're not confident, you can always refund the inspection. No one's going to be upset if you give them their money back, especially in the beginning if it's too overwhelming. But we're trying to prepare you as much as possible with these videos so that you are highly prepared to go out and conduct these. So